Hey guys, I'm Ariana. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Congrats on your premiere. How did it go?
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. It was a great time. Love the Alamo. The Alamo, the energy and the vibe and the spirit in there is really wonderful. And it was great to watch it all together as the cast and the crew and, and celebrate all of our hard work. So it was exciting.
Huh. Yana, where did you get the inspiration for this story?
I grew up on Oahu. I love, obviously home, and home is where the heart is, and that's where my heart is. And I always knew I wanted to shoot my first feature there. And the inspiration for the film came about at my very good friend's birthday luau a couple years ago. And the events that happened at that birthday luau led to the inception of the story for Reeling.
Okay. What do you think Ryan was like before the accident? Because we only see the accident, but what do you think he was like before? We only know that he did play Hamlet before.
Yeah. So, it's funny because obviously, I had a few other improvised scenes that informed us about Ryan's character before the accident. And, in the editing room, you have to make choices. And I just ended up kind of going away with those. But the way that I envision Ryan is someone who, did get into some trouble. He was an actor and a creative and, liked to have fun. He had a great relationship with his brother that was competitive, but he also was happy to let his brother, take the more like kind of take the wins when it comes to the athletic activities that they were doing. So Ryan was a very like fun loving, creative kind of a yes person who was just like down for anything and down for the party and a good time. And sometimes that got him into a little bit of trouble. And trouble either with friends or maybe with some ladies or with family, but for the most part a very like wonderful, loving and generous person and addition to the Brown family.
Yes. For you guys, how did you guys build the whole sibling dynamic? And do you think the dynamic kind of remained the same before and after the accident?
I think that the dynamic between Meg and Ryan, I don't know, I always imagine because I'm the baby sister, and Ryan was this, like fun-loving rascal. So I always imagine that he was kind of like showing Meg the ropes, teaching her things that she, shouldn't know. And the roles completely reverse after the accident because Meg becomes this caretaker for Ryan, um, which is like a very jarring switch up to have somebody that is sort of like guiding you through life, where all of a sudden you're the one that kind of has to guide them back into a world that they once knew. And John, I think that Meg and John probably had little like spats here and there because she's the baby sister as well and the youngest and the only girl. So she's probably a little like spoiled by the parents. And I can see John, giving her a little like talking to every now and then. And they still kind of have that rapport, I think, after the accident too. But there's definitely a lot more tension because Meg has an expectation of John to welcome Ryan back in. And when that doesn't happen, she's pissed.
I think there's you can utilize backstory in really good ways to raise stakes in storytelling. So for me, it was very much about creating a storyline in which there was a very close bond between his siblings for this character, because that could allow me to raise the stakes of where this story is now. And it makes it a lot more powerful in terms of storytelling, in my opinion. So that's how I approached it, is imagining an extremely close bond between these siblings before things dissolved a bit. And that helps to create, I think, a dynamic that shows up on screen.
Yeah. Han, did you think that John has any guilt or remorse. How he even interacts with his brother, even with Meg, like to me, when I was watching the movie, it took me a second to realize that they were brothers. Um, their interactions are just so bizarre, and he doesn't try to, I guess the word would be appease or even try to welcome him. And as we see later in the movie, he doesn't really have, in my opinion, any guilt or remorse, or maybe he needs to build up this wall for him to get through each day. What was your idea of John and playing him?
I think it's such a complex, we are such complex creatures in the way we do things. And when something like this happens, you can go in one of two directions. And one is to admit and accept and heal. And the other is to push down, push away because of the pain that brings about. And we do this in real life. Some of the craziest things we can convince ourselves we weren't responsible for. We don't have, there was a reason for it. And so I think in this, it wasn't necessarily even convincing myself of it. It was more pulling from things in my life where I saw that showing up and saying like, oh, wow, like I've done this in my past. And sometimes it's the people you love the most that you end up doing these things that you don't even understand why you're saying the thing you're saying or pushing them away. And it isn't until you've done some really deep work on yourself that you understand what's at the heart of that, what's at the root of it, So I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah,
Yeah, the movie plays a lot of like mental gymnastics that people have to do, whether they lost their memory or just trying to go day by day in life to just get by. Nikki, it seems like Meg at one point kind of loses her patience with Ryan. Is it a temporary annoyance, or do you think she has reached a breaking point when it comes to Ryan?
I think that at first she, is hoping that it's just a, quick moment in time of frustration. But I think as the night continues on, the disappointment is definitely major. At the same time, though, I do think that she continues to be forgiving, and I do think that, if things transpired differently, that she would have, forgiven Ryan. But they definitely had conversations about how things were supposed to go at my birthday, and those things weren't really honored, as you will see in the movie. So yeah, I think it's definitely a big letdown because she's also, trying to get everybody to, make Ryan feel welcome, and he, makes it a little weird.
Yeah. Um, Yana and Ryan, I felt like a really interesting scene and conversation is when Ryan has that conversation with the guy who was into tarot, because I think for me that was probably the most quote unquote normal interaction that he had. The guy kind of treats Ryan as a quote unquote normal person. He's understanding of the situation, but it's also just like, okay, you didn't understand that, but oh, do you remember this? But he doesn't really push him and doesn't really treat him like a child. Yana, why was it important to have that scene? And Ryan, what was it like to play out that scene, especially because it's so different for Ryan, the character's other interactions?
Absolutely, and thank you. You just really said that so eloquently. But there needed to be a character where we learned about Ryan's past and that could really empathize with Ryan and could show, who he is to the audience. So that the character who is the character Fabrizio, he's actually my brother in real life, and he loves tarot cards, and he has a tarot card mobile game app. And he's actually here at South by Southwest as well. But he really he was a device, that character is a device to show us and tell us who Ryan is. And you're absolutely right in saying it is the first quote unquote, normal interaction that he has, or someone that's opening to him. But even Fabrizio's character, moving towards the end, we see that shift. Sorry, because we're trying not to give away story points, but we even see that shift. But you're right, is that is the first scene, and it's such a critical one in really making us understand who Ryan is, and that we could be sitting there talking with him as well.
We also talked about there being anchor points in terms of like memory, and what would it be if there was a character in the story that he does remember, he does have memories, and that becomes one of the anchors that he can hold on to in this space that he's come back to, because memory is, we don't know how it works, and certain things can live there still, while other things are completely gone. So it was really interesting to think about it in that way, where having a character that does remember little things, and maybe another character in that story was one of those things that he actually remembers. So that was, and I think the naturalness of that conversation was because of that, the idea that he remembers him, so he can be different in a way with him.
Yeah, and it also shows that in the past Ryan was super outgoing because he played Hamlet before. So it was nice. I really appreciated that scene. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Congrats on your premiere, and I'm so happy to see where else this goes.
Thank you so much. It was such a great interview. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.